You guys ready for day 2 of some booms, guys? You are the news now. We are the news now. Uninterrupted coverage, folks. Hello, Q Army. Let's do this. Ready? Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Won't be for everyone, folks. That choice to know will be yours. We are Q, you are Q. Where we go one, we go all, folks. That's right. Impeachment day 2, folks. Thank you for coming. Fight, 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 and fight we will. And you know what? I was a little bit late on getting the meeting out, and I was running around trying to get this done and set up, and Mr. Shady Groove is with us. Shady, say hello. I hope Shady's there with us. Shady.
Hello, hello, hello.
There he is, man. I'm so sorry, dude. We're here. And I was watching the news yesterday, and I noticed that there was a lot of people that basically, screwed up the coverage, man. They were talking.
They didn't show the coverage.
No, they didn't show the coverage. I mean, we had Dershowitz, welcome aboard, Alan, right? Freedom,
yep.
Surgically taking the articles apart, showing that we can basically impeach 44.
Throw it all out.
Impeach 44 too, right? And here we are.
We can impeach everybody. We can impeach Carter.
So this channel right here, Matrix and Shady, right here, you guys are allowing us to stream this live uninterrupted, guys.
Because we want to see the president's defense.
This is history, guys, in the making, and this is congressional record. This is a verbatim account of the remarks made by senators and representatives while they're on the floor of the Senate and the House of Representatives. It also includes all bills. I mean, this is it, guys. And we've got Justice Roberts coming in, Shady. So any comments before we get started here?
No, just that I'm glad that we're here and that all of y'all are here today to watch this historic event, because this is historic, and we all should be paying extra attention to our president's current state of safety. Legalese.
That's right. Amen, Shady.
Unsafe world. Guard us from those who smile but plan evil in their hearts. Use our senators to bring peace and unity to our world. May they permit godliness to make them bold as lions. Give them a clearer vision of your desires for our nation. Remind them that they borrow their heartbeats from you each day. Provide them with such humility, hope, and courage that they will do your will. Lord, grant that this impeachment trial will make our nation stronger, wiser, and better. We pray in your strong name. Amen.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here we go, guys. And by the way,
Please
Joe
be seated.
Joe M is back. That's correct, guys. And I'm blocked by him. So let him know that I'd like him to
There is
unblock me.
no objection. The
Talk to you
journal of
later.
proceedings of the trial are approved to date. Without objection, so ordered. The Sergeant-at-Arms will make the proclamation.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons are commanded to keep silent on pain of imprisonment while the Senate of the United States is sitting for the trial of the articles of impeachment exhibited by the House of Representatives against Donald John Trump, President of the United States.
Mr. Chief Justice,
The Majority Leader is recognized.
we expect several hours of session today with probably one quick break in the middle.
Thank you. Pursuant to the provisions of Senate Resolution 483, the Counsel for the President have 15 hours and 33 minutes remaining to make the presentation of their case, though it will not be possible to use the remainder of that time before the end of the day. The Senate will now hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice. Members of the Senate, just to give you a very quick, brief overview of today, we do not intend to use much of that time today, Mr. Chief Justice. We intend to be, our goal is to be finished by dinner time and well before. We'll have 3 presentations. First will be Pat Philbin, Deputy White House Counsel. Then Jay Sekulow will give a presentation. We'll take a break if that's okay with you, Mr. Leader, and then after that, I'll finish with a presentation. So that's our goal for the day, and with that, I'll turn it over to Pat Philbin.
Mr. Chief Justice, members of the Senate, Majority Leader McConnell, Minority Leader Schumer, I'd like to start today by making a couple of observations related to the abuse of power charge in the first article of impeachment. And I wouldn't presume to elaborate on Professor Dershowitz's presentation from yesterday evening, which I thought was complete and compelling, but I wanted to just add a couple of very specific points in support of the exposition of the Constitution and the impeachment clause that he set out. And it begins from a focus on the point in the debate about the impeachment clause at the Constitutional Convention, where maladministration was offered by George Mason as a grounds for impeachment. And James Madison responded that that was a bad idea. And he said, so vague a term will be equivalent to a tenure during the pleasure of the Senate. And that evinced a deep-seated concern that Madison had, and it's part of the whole design of our Constitution, for ways that can lead to exercises of arbitrary power. The Constitution was designed to put limits and checks on all forms of government power. Obviously, one of the great mechanisms for that is the separation of powers, the structural separation of powers in our Constitution. But it also comes from defining and limiting powers and responsibilities, and a concern that vague terms, vague standards are themselves an opportunity for the expansion of power and the exercise of arbitrary power. And we see that throughout the Constitution and in the impeachment clause as well. And this is why, as Gouverneur Morris argued in discussing the impeachment clause, that only few offenses, he said, few offenses ought to be impeachable, and the cases ought to be enumerated and defined. And that's why we see in the debates at the Constitution, there was many terms had been included in earlier drafts when it was narrowed down to treason and bribery, and there was a suggestion to include maladministration, which had been a ground for impeachment in English practice. The framers rejected it because it was too vague. It was too expansive. It would allow for arbitrary exercises of power. And we see throughout the Constitution in terms that relate and fit in with the impeachment clause the same concern. One is in the definition of treason. The framers were very concerned that the English practice of having a vague concept of treason that was malleable and could be changed even after the fact to define new concepts of treason was dangerous. It was one of the things that they wanted to reject from the English system. So they defined in the Constitution very specifically what constituted treason and how it had to be proved. And then that term was incorporated into the impeachment clause. Similarly, in the rejection of maladministration, which had been an impeachable offense in England, the framers rejected that because it was vague. A vague standard, something that's too changeable, that can be redefined, can be malleable after the fact, allows for the arbitrary exercise of power. And that would be dangerous to give that power to the legislature as a power to impeach the executive. And similarly, and it relates again to the impeachment clause, one of the greatest dangers from having changeable standards that existed in the English system was bills of attainder. Under a bill of attainder, the Parliament could pass a specific law saying that a specific person had done something unlawful, they were being attainted, even though it wasn't unlawful before that. And the framers rejected that entire concept. In Article 1, Section 9, they eliminated both bills of attainder and all ex post facto laws for criminal penalties at the federal level, and they also included a provision to prohibit states from using bills of attainder. Now, in the English system, there was a relationship to some extent between impeachment and bills of attainder because both were tools of the Parliament to get at officials in the government. You could impeach them for an established offense, or you could pass a bill of attainder. And it was because the definition of impeachment was being narrowed that George Mason at the debate suggested, and he pointed out, in the English system, there's a bill of attainder. It's been a great useful tool for the government, but we're eliminating that, and now we're getting a narrow definition of impeachment. We ought to expand it to include maladministration. And Madison said no, and the framers agreed. We have to have enumerated and defined offenses, not a vague concept, not something that can be blurry and interpreted after the fact, and that could be used essentially to make policy differences or other differences like that the subject of impeachment. All of the steps that the framers took in the way they approached the impeachment clause were in terms of narrowing, restricting, constraining, enumerating offenses, and not a vague and malleable approach as there had been in the English system. And I think the minority views of Republican members of the House Judiciary Committee at the time of the Nixon impeachment inquiry summed this up and reflected it well, because they explained, and I'm quoting from the minority views in the report, the whole tenor of the framers' discussions, the whole purpose of their many careful departures from English impeachment practice was in the direction of limits and of standards. An impeachment power exercised without extrinsic and objective standards would be tantamount to the use of bills of attainder and ex post facto laws, which are expressly forbidden by the Constitution and are contrary to the American spirit of justice. And what we see in the House managers' charges and their definition of abuse of power is exactly antithetical to the framers' approach, because their very premise for their abuse of power charge is that it is entirely based on subjective motive, not objective standards, not predefined offenses, but the president can do something that is perfectly lawful, perfectly within his authority, but if the real reason, as Professor Dershowitz pointed out, that's the language from their report, the reason in the president's mind is something that they ferret out and decide is wrong, that becomes impeachable. And that's not a standard at all. It ends up being infinitely malleable. And it's something that I think a telling factor that reflects how malleable it is and how dangerous it is in the House Judiciary Committee's report. Because after they define their concept of abuse of power, and they say that it involves your exercising government power for personal interest and not the national interest, and it depends on your subjective motives, they realize that that's infinitely malleable. There's not really a clear standard there. And it's violating a fundamental premise of the American system of justice that you have to have notice of what is wrong. You have to have notice of an offense. And this is something that Professor Dershowitz pointed out last night. There has to be a defined offense in advance. And the way they try to resolve this is to say, well, in addition to our definition, high crimes and misdemeanors involve conduct that is recognizably wrong to a reasonable person. And that's their kind of add-on to deal with the fact that they have an unconstitutionally vague standard. They don't have a standard that really defines a specific offense. They don't have a standard that really defines in coherent terms that are going to be identifiable what the offenses are. So they just add on, and it's got to be recognizably wrong. And they say that they're doing this to resolve a tension, they call it, within the Constitution. Because they point out, and this is quoting from the report, the structure of the Constitution, including its prohibition on bills of attainder and the ex post facto clause, implies that impeachable offenses should not come as a surprise. And that's exactly what Professor Dershowitz pointed out. And everything about the terms of the Constitution, speaking of an offense and a conviction, that it's all crimes should be tried by jury except impeachments, they all talk about impeachment in those criminal offense terms. But the tension here isn't within the Constitution, it's between the House manager's definition, which lacks any coherent definition of an offense that would catch people by surprise, and the Constitution. That's the tension that they're trying to resolve, is between their malleable standard that actually states no clear offense and the Constitution and the principles of justice embodied in the Constitution that require some clear offense. So I wanted to point that out in relation to the standards for impeachable offenses, because it's another piece of the constitutional puzzle that fits in with the exposition that Professor Dershowitz set out. And it also shows an inherent flaw in the House manager's theory of abuse of power, regardless of whether or not one accepts the view that an impeachable offense has to be a crime, a defined crime. There is still the flaw in their definition of abuse of power, that it is so malleable, based on purely subjective standards, that it does not provide any cognizable notice of an offense. It is so malleable, it in effect recreates the offense of maladministration that the framers expressly rejected, as Professor Dershowitz explained. The second point that I wanted to make is that how do we tell, under the House manager's standard, what an illicit motive is, or when there's an illicit motive? How are we supposed to get the proof of what's inside the president's head? Because, of course, motive is inherently difficult to prove, where you're talking about, as they've conceded, they're talking about perfectly lawful actions on their face within the constitutional authority of the president, but they want to make it impeachable if it's just the wrong idea inside the president's head. And they explain in the House Judiciary Committee report that the way we'll tell if the president had the wrong motive is we'll compare what he did to what staffers in the executive branch said he ought to do. So they say, quote, that the president, quote, disregarded United States foreign policy towards Ukraine, end quote, and that he ignored, quote, unquote, official policy that he had been briefed on, and that he, quote, ignored, defied, and confounded every agency within the executive branch, end quote. That is not a constitutionally coherent statement. The president cannot defy agencies within the executive branch. Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution vests all of the executive power in a president of the United States. He alone is an entire branch of government. He sets policy for the executive branch. He's given vast power. And of course, within limits set by laws passed by Congress, and within limits set by spending priorities, spending laws passed by Congress, he, within those constraints, sets the policies of the government. And in areas of foreign affairs, military affairs, national security, which is what we're dealing with in this case, foreign affairs, head of state communications. He has vast powers. As Professor Dershowitz explained, for over 2 centuries, the president has been regarded as the sole organ of the nation in foreign affairs. So the idea that we're going to find out when the president had the wrong subjective motives by comparing what he did to the recommendations of some interagency consensus among staffers is fundamentally anti-constitutional. It inverts the constitutional structure. And it's also fundamentally anti-democratic, because our system is rather unique in the amount of power that it gives to the president. The executive here has much more power than in a parliamentary system. But part of the reason that the president can have that power is that he is directly democratically accountable to the people. There is an election every 4 years to ensure that the president stays democratically accountable to the people. But those staffers in these supposed interagency who have their meetings and make recommendations to the president are not accountable to the people. There is no democratic legitimacy or accountability to their decisions or recommendations. And that is why it is the president, as head of the executive branch, who has the authority to actually set policies and make determinations, regardless of what the staffers may recommend. They're there to provide information and recommendations, not to set policy. So the idea that we're going to start impeaching presidents by deciding that they have illicit motives if we can show that they disagreed with some interagency consensus is fundamentally contrary to the Constitution and fundamentally anti-democratic. So those were the 2 observations I wanted to add to supplement specific points on Professor Dershowitz's comments from last night. Now I want to shift gears and respond to a couple of points that the House managers have brought up that are really completely extraneous to this proceeding. They involve matters that are not charged in the articles of impeachment. They do not relate directly to the president or his actions. But they are accusations that were brought up somewhat recklessly in any event, and we cannot close without some response to them. And the first has to do with the idea that somehow the White House and White House lawyers were involved in some sort of cover-up related to the transcript of the July 25th call because it was stored on a highly classified system. So let me start with that. The House managers made this accusation there was something nefarious going on. But let's see what the witnesses actually had to say. Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, and remember, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman is the person who was listening in on the call and who raised a concern, the only person who went and raised a concern with NSC lawyers that he thought there was something improper, something wrong with the call, even though he later conceded under cross-examination it was really a policy concern, but he thought there was something wrong. And he had to say that he did not think, he said, "So I do not think there was malicious intent or anything of that nature to cover anything up." He's the one who went and talked to the lawyers. He's the one whose complaint spurred the idea that, wait, there might be something that's really sensitive here. We should make sure that this is not going to leak. He thought there was nothing covering it up. His boss, Senior Director Tim Morrison, had similar testimony.
So to the best of your knowledge, there's no malicious intent in moving the transcript to the compartmented server?
Correct.
And the idea that there was some sort of cover-up is further destroyed by the simple fact that everyone who, as part of their jobs, needed access to that transcript still had access to it, including Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. Right? So the person who raises a complaint still has access to the transcript the entire time. And this is the way Mr. Morrison's testimony explained that.
And even on the code word server, you had access to it.
Yes.
So at no point in time during the course of your official duties were you denied access to this information?
Correct.
Is that correct? And to your knowledge, anybody on the NSC staff that needed access to the transcript for their official duties always was able to access it, correct? people that had a need to know and a need to access it?
Once it was moved to the compartmented system?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, as Mr. Morrison testified, he had recommended restricting access to the transcript, not because he had any concern that there was anything improper or illegal, but he was concerned about a potential leak, and as he put it, how that, quote, would play out in Washington's polarized environment, end quote, and would, quote, affect the bipartisan support our Ukrainian partners currently experience in Congress. And he was right to be concerned potentially about leaks because the Trump administration has faced national security leaks at an alarming rate. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman himself said that concerns about leaks seemed justified, and it was not unusual that something would be put in a more restricted circulation. Now, what else is in the record evidence? Mr. Morrison explained his understanding of how the transcript ended up on that server.
I spoke with the NSC Executive Secretariat staff, asked them why, and they did their research, and they informed me it had been moved to the higher classification system at the direction of John Eisenberg, whom I then asked why. I mean, if that was the judgment he made, that's not necessarily mine to question, but I didn't understand it, and he essentially told me I gave no such direction. He did his own inquiry, and he represented back to me that his understanding was that it was a kind of administrative error, that when he also gave direction to restrict access, the Executive Secretariat staff understood that as an apprehension that there was something in the content of the MEMCON that could not exist on the lower classification system.
So to the best of your knowledge, there's no malicious intent in moving the transcript to the compartmented server?
Correct.
Everyone who knew something about it and who testified agreed there was no malicious intent. The call was still available to everyone who needed it as part of their job, and it certainly wasn't covered up or deep-sixed in some way. The president declassified it and made it public. So why we're even here talking about these accusations about a cover-up when it's a transcript that was preserved and made public is somewhat absurd. Now, the other point I'd like to turn to, another accusation from the House managers, is that the whistleblower complaint, when the whistleblower complaint was not forwarded to Congress, they've said that lawyers at the Department of Justice this time, they accuse OLC, the Office of Legal Counsel, of providing a bogus opinion for why the Director of National Intelligence did not have to advance the whistleblower's complaint to Congress. And Manager Jeffries said that OLC opined, quote, without any reasonable basis that the acting DNI did not have to turn over the complaint to Congress, end quote. And the way he portrayed this, now there's a statute that says if the Inspector General of the intelligence community finds a matter of urgent concern, it must be forwarded to Congress. And Manager Jeffries portrayed this as if the only thing to decide was were these claims urgent. He said, quote, what could be more urgent than a sitting president trying to cheat in an American election by soliciting foreign interference? That's not the only question. The statute doesn't just say if it's urgent, you have to forward it. It talks about urgent concern as a defined term. Now, if the House managers want to come and cast accusations at the political and career officials at the Office of Legal Counsel, which we all know is a very respected office of the Department of Justice, provides opinions for the executive branch on what governing law is, they should come backed up with analysis. So let's look at what the law actually says. And I think we have the slide of that. Urgent concern is defined as a serious or flagrant problem, abuse, violation of law relating to the funding, administration, or operation of an intelligence activity within the responsibility and authority of the Director of National Intelligence involving classified information. So the Office of Legal Counsel was consulted by the General Counsel at the DNI's office, And they looked at this definition, and they did an analysis, and they determined that the alleged misconduct is not an urgent concern within the meaning of the statute. Because they're not just talking about, do we think it's urgent? Do we think it's important? No, they're analyzing the law. And they looked at the terms of the statute. The alleged misconduct is not an urgent concern within the meaning of the statute because it does not concern the funding, administration, or operation of an intelligence activity under the authority of the DNI. Remember, what we're talking about here is a head of state communication between the President of the United States and another head of state. This isn't some CIA operation overseas. This isn't the NSA doing something. This isn't any intelligence activity going on within the intelligence community under the supervision of the DNI. It's the head of the executive branch exercising his constitutional authority, engaging in foreign relations with a foreign head of state. So in reaching that conclusion, the Office of Legal Counsel looked at the statute, the case law, the legislative history, and it concluded that this phrase, of urgent concern, includes matters relating to intelligence activities subject to the DNI's supervision, but it does not include allegations of wrongdoing arising outside of any intelligence activity or outside the intelligence community itself, and that makes sense. This statute was meant to provide for an ability of the Inspector General of the intelligence community, overseeing the activities of the intelligence community, to receive reports about what was going on at intelligence agencies, those that are members of the intelligence community, if there was fraud, waste, abuse, something unlawful in those activities. It was not meant to create an Inspector General of the presidency, an Inspector General of the Oval Office, to purport to determine whether the president, in exercising his constitutional authorities, had done something that should be reported. This law is narrow, and it does not cover every alleged violation of law, OLC explained, or other abuse that comes to the attention of a member of the intelligence community. Just because you're in the intelligence community and happen to see something else doesn't make this law apply. And the law does not make the Inspector General for the intelligence community responsible for investigating and reporting on allegations that do not involve intelligence activities or the intelligence community. Now, nonetheless, the President, of course, released the July 25th call transcript. And it was also not the end of the matter that the whistleblower complaint and the DNI, the ICIG's letter were not sent directly to Congress, because OLC explained that if the complaint does not involve an urgent concern, but if there's anything else there that you want to have checked out, the appropriate action is to refer the matter to the Department of Justice. And that's what the DNI's office did. They sent the ICIG's letter with the complaint to the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice looked at it. And this was all made public some time ago. The Department of Justice examined the exact allegations of the whistleblower and the exact framing and concern raised by the Inspector General, which had to do with a potential of perhaps a campaign finance law violation. DOJ looked at it, looked at the statutes, analyzed it, and determined there was no violation, and it closed the matter. And it announced that months ago. All right, when something gets sent over to the Department of Justice to examine, you can't call that a cover-up. Everything here was done correctly. The lawyers analyzed the law. The complaint was sent to the appropriate person for review. It was not within the statute that required transmission to Congress. And everything was handled entirely properly. So again, actually extraneous to the matters before you, there's nothing about these 2 points in the articles of impeachment, but it merits a response when reckless allegations are made against those at the White House and at the Department of Justice. And with that, Mr. Chief Justice, I'll yield back my time to Mr. Sekulow.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice. Majority Leader McConnell, Democratic Leader Schumer, House managers, members of the Senate. What we are involved in here, as we conclude, is perhaps the most solemn of duties under our constitutional framework. The trial of the leader of the free world and the duly elected President of the United States. It is not a game of leaks and unsourced manuscripts. That's politics, unfortunately, and Hamilton put impeachment in the hands of this body, the Senate, precisely and specifically to be above that fray. This is the greatest deliberative body on earth. In our presentation so far, you've now heard from legal scholars from a variety of schools of thought, from a variety of political backgrounds. But they do have a common theme with a dire warning: danger, danger, danger. To lower the bar of impeachment based on these articles of impeachment would impact the functioning of our constitutional republic and the framework of that Constitution for generations. I asked you to put yourself, and I'm quoting Mr. Schiff's, Manager Schiff's statement his father made about putting yourselves in the shoes of someone else, and I said, I'd like you to put yourself in the shoes of the President. And I think it's important as we conclude today that we're reminded of that fact. The President of the United States, before he was the President, was under an investigation. It was called Crossfire Hurricane. It was an investigation led by the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. James Comey eventually told the President a little bit about the investigation and referenced the Steele dossier. James Comey, the then director of the FBI, said it was salacious and unverified. So salacious and unverified that they used it as a basis to obtain FISA warrants. Members, managers here, managers at this table right here, said that any discussions on the abuse from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act utilized to get the FISA warrants from the court were conspiracy theories. I told you at the very beginning, I asked, do you put yourselves in the shoes of not just this president, of any president that would have been under this type of attack? FISA warrants issued on people affiliated with his campaign, American citizens affiliated with people of his campaign, citizens of the United States being surveilled pursuant to an order that has now been acknowledged by the very court that issued the order that it was based on a fraudulent presentation. In fact, evidence specifically changed by the very FBI lawyer who was in charge of this. Changed to such an extent that the Foreign Surveillance Intelligence Court, as I said earlier, I'm not going to repeat it again, issued 2 orders saying that when this agent, this lawyer, made these misrepresentations to the National Security Division, they also made a misrepresentation to a federal court, the federal court, the Foreign Surveillance Court, a court where there are no defense witnesses, a court where is no cross-examination. It's a court based on trust. That trust was violated. And then the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, James Comey, decides he will leak a memo of a conversation he had with the President of the United States. And he is leaking the memo for a purpose, he said, to obtain the appointment of a special counsel. And lo and behold, a special counsel was appointed. And it just so happens that that FBI agent, lawyer, who committed the fraud on the FISA court became a lawyer for the Mueller investigation, only to be removed because of political animus and bias found by the Inspector General. Then we have a special counsel investigation. Lisa Page, Agent Strzok, I'm not going to go into the details. You know them. They're not in controversy, they're uncontroverted. The facts are clear. But does it bother your sense of justice even a little bit? Even a little bit. That Bob Mueller allowed the evidence on the phones of those agents to be wiped clean while there was an investigation going on by the Inspector General. Now, if you did it, Manager Schiff, if you did it, Manager Jeffries, if I did that, destroyed evidence, if anyone in this chamber did this, we'd be in serious trouble. Their serious trouble is they get fired. Bob Mueller's explanation for it is, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I can't recall the conversations. You can't view this case in a vacuum. You are being asked, and I say this with the utmost respect, you are being asked to remove an duly elected president of the United States. This isn't we had references to law school exams, and I love the fact that I thought there were great analysis yesterday, and I appreciate all of that. But I want to focus today, or my section, on what you're being asked to do. You are being asked to remove a duly elected president of the United States, and you're being asked to do it in an election year. In an election year. There are some of you in this chamber right now that would rather be someplace else. And that's why we'll be brief. I understand. You'd rather be someplace else. Why would you rather be someplace else? Because you're running for president, the nomination of your party. I get it. But this is a serious deliberative situation. You're being asked to remove a duly elected president of the United States. That's what the articles of impeachment call for, removal. So we had a special counsel, and we got the report. And just for a moment, putting yourselves in the shoes of this president or any president that would be under this situation, you're number 4 at the Department of Justice. His wife is working for the firm that's doing the opposition research on him and is communicating with the foreign former spy, Christopher Steele, to put together the dossier, and it's being handled by Christopher Steele through Nellie Orr to her husband, then the 4th-ranking member at the Department of Justice, Bruce Orr, and all of this is going on. And he doesn't want to tell, and he's testified to this, he doesn't want to tell everybody what he's doing because he's afraid he might have to stop. Might have to stop. How did this happen? This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And then we ask, why is the president concerned about advice he's being given? Put yourself in his shoes. Put yourself in his shoes. We've given you, and our approach has been, to give an overview and to be very specific. To remove a duly elected president, which is what you're being asked to do, in essentially policy disagreements. You heard a lot about policy. Although the one that it still troubles me. This idea that the president, it was said by several of the managers, is only doing these things for himself. Understanding what is going on in the world today as we're here. They raised it, by the way. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. They raised it. This president is only doing things for himself while the leaders of opposing parties, by the way, at the highest level, to obtain peace in the Middle East, to say you're only doing that for yourself. I think the irony of that those statements were made while all of that was going on, and other acts that this body's passed, some of it bipartisan, to help the American people. Policy differences. Those policy differences cannot be utilized to destroy the separation of powers. House managers spoke for, I know we've had disagreements on the time, if it was 21 hours or 23 hours. They spoke during their time, a lot of time. Most of it attacking the president, policy decisions. They didn't like what they heard. They didn't like there was a pause on foreign aid. I laid out before that there was pauses on all kinds of foreign aid. It's not the first president to do it. But the one thing I'm still trying to understand from the manager's perspective, and maybe it's not fair to ask the managers because you're not the leader of the House, but remember the whole idea that this was a dire national security threat, a danger to our nation? We had to get this over here right away. It had to be done before Christmas. It was so important. It was so significant. The country was in such jeopardy. The jeopardy was so serious that it had to be done immediately. Let's hold on to the articles of impeachment for a month to see if the House could force the Senate to adopt rules that they wanted, which is not the way the Constitution is set up. But it was such a dire emergency. It was so critical for our nation's national interest that we could hold them for 33 days. Danger, danger, danger. That's politics. As I said, you're being called upon to remove the duly elected president of the United States. That's what these articles of impeachment call for. They never really answer the question of why they thought there was such a national emergency. Maybe they will during questions. I don't know. There was such a national emergency. They never did explain why it was that they waited. They certainly didn't wait to have the proceedings as my colleagues have laid out. I mean, those proceedings moved in record time. I suspect that we've been here more than the House actually considered the actual articles of impeachment. Is that the way the Constitution is supposed to work? Is that the design of the Constitution? And then their question, of course, came up and yesterday on the whole situation with Burisma and the Bidens and that whole issue. And my colleagues went through that a great deal, and I'm not going to do that. But do we have are we in a situation, we used to call this, in free speech cases, like a free speech zone. You could have your free speech activities over here. You can't have them over there. Do we have like a Biden-free zone? I mean, was that what this was? You mention someone or you're concerned about a company and it's now off limits. You can impeach the President of the United States for asking a question. I think we significantly showed the question. I'm not going to go through a detail-by-detail analysis of the facts. But there are some that we just have to go through. You heard a lot of new facts yesterday in our presentation. Saturday, what we were pointing to is a very quick overview. And then yesterday, we spent the day, and we appreciate everybody's patience on that, going through the facts. They showed you this, but they didn't show you that. The facts are important, though, because facts have legal ramifications. Legal ramifications impact the decisions you make. So I don't take facts lightly, and I certainly don't take the constitutional mandate lightly, and we can't. The facts we demonstrated yesterday and briefly on Saturday demonstrate that there was, in fact, a proper governmental interest in the questions that the President asked and the issues that the President raised on that phone call. A phone call. Now, let's, again, put your feet in the shoes of the President. Put yourself in the President's position. Do you think he thought when he was on the call it was him and President Zelensky he was talking to and that was it? Or it was, as sometimes I heard one commentator said, it was people listening in on the call, the President and 3,000 of his closest friends. Let's be realistic. The President of the United States knew when he was on that call there were a lot of people listening from our side and from their side. So he knew what he was saying. He said it. We released a transcript of it. The facts on the call that have been kind of the focus of all of this really focused on foreign policy initiatives both in Ukraine and around the globe. They talked about other countries and other countries. The President has been very concerned about other countries carrying some of the financial load here, not just the United States. That's a legitimate position for a president to take. If you disagree with it, you have the right to do that. But he is the president. As my colleague, Deputy White House Counsel Philbin just said, that's the executive branch prerogative. That is their constitutional appropriate role. So the call is well documented. There were lots of people on the call. The person that would be on the other end of the quid pro quo, if it existed, would have been President Zelensky. But President Zelensky, and we already laid out the other officials from Ukraine, have repeatedly said there was no pressure. It was a good call. They didn't even know there was a pause in the aid. All of that is well documented. I'm not going to go through each and every one of those facts. We did that over the last several days. President Zelensky's senior advisor, Andrei Yermak, was asked if he ever felt there was a connection between military aid and the request for investigations, and he was adamant that we never had that feeling, and we did not have the feeling that this aid was connected to any one specific issue. This is coming from the people who were receiving the aid. So we talk about this whole quid pro quo, and that was a big issue. That's how this actually, before it became a impeachment proceeding, there was, as the proceedings were beginning in the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence under Chairman Schiff's role, there was all these discussions. Is it a quid pro quo? Was it extortion? Was it bribery? What was it? And we are clear in our position that there was no quid pro quo. But then yesterday, my co-counsel, Professor Alan Dershowitz, explained last night that these articles must be rejected. He's talking about from a constitutional framework, even if there was a quid pro quo, which we have clearly established there was not. And this is what he said, and I'm going to quote it verbatim. The claim that foreign policy decisions can be deemed abuses of power based on subjective opinions about mixed or sole motives that the president was interested only in helping himself demonstrate the dangers of employing the vague, subjective, and politically malleable phrase abuse of power as a constitutionally permissible criteria for the removal of a president. He went on to say, now it follows from this that if a president, any president, were to have done what the Times reported about the content of John Bolton's manuscript, that would not constitute an impeachable offense. I'm quoting exactly from Professor Dershowitz. He says, let me repeat it. Nothing in the Bolton revelations, even if true, would rise to the level of abuse of power or an impeachable offense. That is clear from history. That is clear from the language of the Constitution. You cannot turn conduct that is not impeachable into impeachable conduct simply by using words like quid pro quo and personal benefit. It is inconceivable that the framers would have intended to so politically loaded and promiscuously deployed a term as abuse of power to be weaponized, again, Professor Dershowitz, as a tool of impeachment. It is precisely the kind of vague, open-ended, and subjective term the founders and the framers feared and rejected. Now, to be specific, you cannot impeach a president on an unsourced allegation. But what Professor Dershowitz was saying, even if everything in there was true, it constitutionally doesn't rise to that level. But I want to be clear on this, because there's a lot of speculation out there. With regard to what John Bolton has said, which referenced a number of individuals, we'll start with the president. Here's what the president said in response to that New York Times piece. I never told John Bolton that the aid to Ukraine was tied to investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens. In fact, he never complained about this at the time of his very public termination. If John Bolton said this, it was only to sell a book. The Department of Justice. While the Department of Justice has not reviewed Mr. Bolton's manuscript, the New York Times account of his conversation grossly mischaracterizes what Attorney General Barr and Bolton discussed. There was no discussion of personal favors or undue influence on investigations, nor did the Attorney General state that the President's conversations with foreign leaders were improper. The Vice President's Chief of Staff issued a statement. In every conversation with the President and the Vice President, in preparation for our trip to Poland, remember that was the trip that was being planned for the meeting with President Zelensky, the President consistently expressed his frustration that the United States was bearing the lion's share of responsibility for aid to Ukraine and that European nations weren't doing their part. The President also expressed concerns about corruption in Ukraine, and at no time did I hear him tie Ukraine aid to investigations into the Biden family or Burisma. That was the response. Responding to an unpublished manuscript that maybe some reporters have an idea of maybe what it says. That's what the evidence, if you want to call that evidence, I don't know what you'd call that. I'd call it inadmissible, but that's what it is. To argue that the President is not acting in our national interest and is violating his oath of office, which the managers have put forward, is wrong based on the facts and by the way the Constitution is designed. And when you look at the fullness of the record of their witnesses, the witnesses' statements, the transcripts, there's one thing that emerges. There is no violation of law. There's no violation of the Constitution. There is a disagreement on policy decisions. Most of those that spoke at your hearings did not like the President's policy. That's why we have elections. That's what policy differentials and differences are discussed. But to have a removal of a duly elected president based on a policy disagreement, that is not what the framers intended. And if you lower the bar that way, danger, danger, danger. Because the next president, or the one after that, he or she will be held to that same standard? I hope not. I pray not. That's not what happens. Not just for the sake of my client, but for the Constitution. You know, Professor Dershowitz gave a list of presidents from Washington to where we are today who, under that standard that they are proposing, could be subject to abuse of power or obstruction of Congress. Look, we know that what this is not about a president pausing aid to Ukraine. It's really not about a phone call. It's about a lot of attempts on policy disagreements that are not being debated here. My goodness, how much time? How much time has been spent in the House of Representatives hoping, they were hoping, that the Mueller probe would result in, I'm not going to play you, I was thinking about it, playing all the clips from all the commentators the day after Bob Mueller testified. Bob Mueller was unable to answer under his examination basic and fundamental questions. He had to correct himself, actually. He had to correct himself before the Senate for something he said before the House. So that's what the president's been living with. And then we're here today arguing about what? A phone call to Ukraine? Or Ukraine aid being held? Or a question about corruption? Or a question about corruption that happens to involve a high public profile figure? I mean, is that what this is? Is that where we are? And then what do we find out? The aid was released. It was released in an orderly fashion. The reform president, President Zelensky, wins, but there was a question whether his party would take the parliament. It did. They worked late into the evening with the desire to put forward reforms. So everybody was waiting, including, and you heard the testimony from, I will say, their witnesses. You heard the testimony. Everybody was concerned about Ukraine. Everybody was concerned about whether these reforms could actually take place. Everybody was concerned about it. So you hold back. Didn't affect anything that was going on in the field. We heard Mr. Crow worrying about the soldiers. I understand that. I appreciate that. But none of that aid was affecting what was going on the battlefield right then or for the next 4 months because it was future aid. And are we having an impeachment proceeding because aid came out 3 weeks before the end of the fiscal year? Or a 6-minute phone call? You boil it down, that's what this is. It's interesting to me that everybody's saying, well, the aid was finally released September 11th, only because of the committee and the whistleblower who we've never seen. Mr. Philbin dealt with that in great detail. I'm not going to go over that again. But you know, the new high court, the anti-corruption court, wasn't established and did not sit until September 5th, 2019. So while the president of Ukraine was trying to get reforms put in place, the court that was going to decide corruption issues was not set until September 5th. I want you to think about this for a moment, too. They needed a high court of corruption for corruption. I mean, think about that for a moment. Now, that's good that they recognized it. But remember when I said the other day, you don't wave a magic wand and now Ukraine doesn't have a corruption problem? The High Court of Corruption, which they have to have, because there's not just past corruption. They're concerned about ongoing corruption issues. And you could put all of your witnesses back under oath in the next hearings you'll have when this is all over. And you're going to be back in the House and we'll be doing this again. Put them all back under oath and ask them, Mr. Schiff, is there a problem of corruption in Ukraine? And if they get up there and say, no, everything is great now, hallelujah. But I suspect they're going to say, we're working really hard on it. And I believe them. But this idea that it was just vanished and now we're back into everything's fine, it's absurd. Mr. Morrison testified that while the developments were taking place, the vice president also met with President Zelensky in Warsaw. That was the meeting of September 1st. The one, by the way, where the vice president's office said, in response to this New York Times, nobody told him about aid being held or linked to investigations. Are you going to stop? Are you going to allow proceedings on impeachment to go from a New York Times report about someone that says what they hear is in a manuscript? Is that where we are? I don't think so. I hope not. What did Morrison say? He heard firsthand that the new Ukraine administration was taking concrete steps to address corruption. That's good. He advised the president that the relationship with Zelensky is one that could be trusted. Good. President Zelensky also agreed with Vice President Pence, this is interesting, that the Europeans should be doing more. And related to Vice President Pence, conversations he'd been having with European leaders about getting them to do more. In sum, the president raised two issues he was concerned with to get them addressed. Now, I've already went over, again, this is just the closing moments here of this proceeding, of our portion of this proceeding. Aid was withheld or paused, put on a pause button, not just for Ukraine. Afghanistan, South Korea, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, Lebanon, and Pakistan, and I'm sure I am leaving countries out. But do you think the American people are concerned if the president says, before we give a country, I don't know, $550 million, some countries only $400 million, we'd like to know what they're doing with it. You're supposed to be the guardians of the trust here. It's the taxpayers' money we're spending. There was a lot of testimony from Dr. Fiona Hill, John Bolton's deputy. Here's what she said about aid that was being held. This is her testimony. There was a freeze put on all kinds of aid and assistance because it was in the process at the time of an awful lot of reviews of foreign assistance. Oh, you mean there was a policy within the administration to review foreign assistance and how we're doing it because we spend a lot of money. And by the way, I'm not complaining about the money. I don't think anybody doesn't want to help. But we do need to know what's going on. And those are valid and important questions. Manager Crow told you that the president's Ukraine policy was not strong against Russia. But Ambassador Yovanovitch stated the exact opposite. She said in her deposition that our country's Ukraine policy under President Trump actually, her words, got stronger than it was under President Obama. So again, policy disagreements, disagreements on approach. Have elections. That's what we do in our republic. For 3 long days, House managers presented their case by selectively showing parts of testimony. Good lawyers show parts of testimony. You don't have to show the whole thing. But other good lawyers show the rest of the testimony. And that's what we sought to do, to give you a fuller view of what we saw as the glaring omissions by my colleagues. the House managers. The legal issues here are the constitutional ones. And I have been, I think, pretty clear over the last week, starting when we had the motions arguments, that my concern about the constitutional obligations that we're operating under. I have been critical of Manager Nadler's executive privilege and other nonsense. I want you to look at it this way. Take out executive privilege. First Amendment free speech and other nonsense. The free exercise of religion and other nonsense. The rights to due process and other nonsense. The rights to equal protection under the laws and other nonsense. You can't start doing that. You would not do that. No administration has done that. In fact, since the first administration, George Washington, they wanted information. He thought it was privilege. He said it was executive privilege. But let's not start calling constitutional rights other nonsense, lumping them together. Of course, this is from a House of Representatives that actually believes the attorney-client privilege doesn't apply, which should scare every lawyer in Washington, D.C. But more scary to the lawyers would be for their clients. They say that in writing, in letters. They don't hide it. I would ask them, I'm not going to, it's not my privilege to do that. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that the attorney-client privilege does not apply in a congressional hearing? Do you really believe that? Because then if it doesn't apply, then there is no attorney-client privilege. Or is that the attorney-client privilege and other nonsense? Danger, danger, danger. We believe that Article 1 fails constitutionally. The President has constitutional authority to engage and conduct foreign policy and foreign affairs. It is our position, legally, the President at all times acted with perfect legal authority, inquired of matters in our national interest, and having received assurances of those matters, continued his policy that his administration put forward of what really is unprecedented support for Ukraine, including the delivery of military aid package that was denied to the Ukrainians by prior administrations. You know, some of the managers right here, my colleagues at the other table, voted in favor of those, wanted Javelin anti-tank missiles for Ukraine. Some of the members here did not. Didn't want to do that. Voted against that. I'm glad we gave it to them. I'm glad we allowed them to purchase Javelins. I tell you, I never served in the military. I have tremendous, tremendous respect for the men and women that protect our freedom each and every day. Tremendous respect for what they are doing and continue to do. But this president actually allowed the Javelins to go. Some of you liked that idea, some of you did not. It's a policy difference. Were you going to impeach President Obama because he did not give them lethal aid? No, nor should have you. You should not do that. It's a policy difference. Policy difference do not rise to the level of constitutionally mandated or constitutional applications for removal from office. It is policy differences. By the way, it's not just on lethal weapons. And President Obama, as I said, withheld aid. He had the right to do that. You've allowed him to do that. Oh, but we don't like that this president did it, so the rules change. So this president's rules are different than, he has a different set of standards he has to apply than what you allowed the previous administration to apply, and you know what? Or the future administration to apply. That's the problem with these articles. We've laid out, I believe, a compelling case on what the Constitution requires. When they were in the House of Representatives putting this together, did they go through a constitutionally mandated accommodations process to see if there was a way to come up with something? No, they did not. Did they run to court? No. And the one time it was about to happen, they ran the other way. Separation of powers means something. It's not separation of powers and other nonsense. If we've reached now, at this very moment, in the history of our republic, a bar of impeachment because you don't like the president's policies or you don't like the way he undertook those policies, because we hear a lot about policies. If partisan impeachment is now the rule of the day, which these members and members of this Senate said should never be the rule of the day. My goodness, they said it, some of them 5 months ago. But then we had the national emergency. A phone call. It's an emergency. Except we'll just wait. But if partisan impeachment based on policy disagreements, which is what this is, and personal presumptions, or newspaper reports and allegations in a unsourced, maybe this is in somebody's book who's no longer at the White House, that becomes the new norm. Future presidents, Democrats, Republicans, will be paralyzed the moment they are elected, before they can even take the oath of office. The bar for impeachment cannot be set this low. Majority Leader McConnell, Democratic Leader Schumer, House managers, members of the Senate. Danger, danger, danger. These articles must be rejected. The Constitution requires it. Justice demands it. Majority Leader, we would ask for a short recess if we can, about 15 minutes.
15 minutes, let's go.
The Majority Leader is recognized.
We got some
We'll
cue.
be in recess for 15 minutes.
15
Without
minutes,
objection.
guys. Thank you, Justice Roberts. Thank you very much for all of that. Shady, let me go ahead and get Shady in here. Hang on. Shady, can you hear me? We got some cue drops, guys. Hopefully you can see them on the... Yeah, I got you 5 by 5, my brother. Let me actually switch to another browser window here. Hang on one second, guys. We are going to go over these cues. It is important. I love when Q drops on our shows, Shady.
Especially whenever he drops stuff we talked about yesterday.
You know, and I don't want to be like, you know, all like, hey, you know, we're all that. But hey, we're all that. I love you guys. Very amazing. This is you guys right here. Thank you very much. There's the Patreon. Let's go over here to QAG. Let's get it right over here, folks. Here it is. So, by the way, somebody I know tweeted that out. Amazing. Yay, there's Brexit leaving Friday, January 31st. 2-year Delta, guys. I believe that's a 2-year Delta. Yeah, 2018. Next Friday. We're leaving next Friday. Oh my gosh, guys. Freedom marker. UK freedom from the EU. And then Q, guess what Q says, Shady? Read it. You got this one. Oh, wait. Am I sharing it? Am I sharing it with you guys? Hang on one second. Let me make sure I'm sharing it.
It's coming up on YouTube now with me.
It is?
Yeah, you've got it up on the show.
All right, very good. So it's this one's a long one, Shady. Go ahead and read it one more time.
Confirmed. Q.
There you go. Boom. Wow. Whew, that was a long-winded one, Shady.
I know, that took me like 10 minutes.
Right, I'll get the next one, okay?
Let's do it.
I'll get the next one. Q post 3796. Important. Q. And we go over here, so let's go ahead and watch it, guys. This is Watch Rep Ratcliffe and Maria Baratomo. Why Schiff is hiding the 18th transcript. I hope this comes out tomorrow. The American people need to know about the Atkinson transcript. Let's check it out, guys.
There were 18 witnesses that the House prosecutors had for this, but you have not seen all 18 transcripts. Is that right?
That's exactly right, Maria. The House managers kept putting up charts talking about the 17 witnesses, but there were 18. The 18th was the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, Michael Atkinson. He was the second witness interviewed on October 4th. I was there. It's the one transcript out of 18 that hasn't been released. It's a 179-page transcript, and you can bet that if that transcript was helpful to Adam Schiff and the Democrats and harmful to President Trump, everyone would have seen it by now. But instead, it's just the opposite. It's the one transcript that talks about Adam Schiff and the whistleblower. Now, everyone knows by now that Adam Schiff was not truthful about his contacts with the whistleblower. What they don't know, and what's in that transcript, is that the whistleblower wasn't truthful about his contacts with Adam Schiff. This whole thing started, Maria, when a whistleblower filed a complaint with the Inspector General under penalty of perjury that wasn't true and correct, made representations in writing and then verbally that weren't true and correct. And when we found that out and tried to get into the details of that, Adam Schiff, who was in charge of this investigation, shut it down, and now he's trying to bury that transcript.
Interdasting, folks. What do you think about that, Shady?
I think that we've been sitting on the 17 transcripts for a couple of weeks now and loving the number 17. And then all of a sudden in the news, we have another one that they're hiding from us about the whistleblower.
And what? It's unbelievable. Guys, and you know, this is amazing. How many people do we have here today with us?
I wonder if that means it's unavailable to the stuff that they brought over to the Senate.
We have 930 people here today, guys. Uh-oh, we got a new Q post. Here it is. Q post 3797, folks. It goes to the witch hunt continues from R. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. And it says, Sekulo's argument is passionate here. He is telling the Senate that if they remove Trump in the middle of an election after his campaign was spied on by the government and smeared for Russia collusion by the House managers, they will be ... Important. Q. 0 CST. Having fun yet? Q. Oh, we got a 0 Delta, folks.
0 Delta. That's what I was going to say. Yep. Central Standard.
109 and 109.
What is this, like 26, 27?
Oh, my gosh. There's a lot of 0 Deltas, my friend.
He's approaching 30.
Yeah, he is.
Feels like.
Wow, this is just, guys, we're all here together. Press 17 if you're loving the show and if you're loving the Q posts. I mean, my gosh. I think we're going to see a lot of 17s here, Shady. I mean, where's mine? Hang on, let me get my 17.
I'm loving to hear a person stand up and defend the position of the executive authority in America.
I mean, especially not, a good executive authority, Shady. I mean, I've never been behind any president ever in my life.
Right. Well, I personally don't want the state to have unwavering powers over the surveillance of Americans, right?
Yep.
But the reality is that they have that, and they've been using that in a very unproductive way to attack Americans as opposed to secure them. That's completely different than what the people who went along with the Patriot Act and went along with what's going on in airports. That's not exactly what we intended whenever we decided to bow our heads and say, okay, well, you can just keep treating us like sheep so we're more safe.
Sheep?
And now obviously we see that they've utilized these tactics to go after their political enemies.
Right.
And we've got to get loud and get this stuff shut down. We don't need a FISA court matrix. This is total BS.
This was another way for them to do illegal things, right, Shady? I mean, they obviously, Spud.
We don't need a Patriot Act.
Yep. We don't need a Patriot Act because that took away how many of our 7? I think it was 7 of our constitutional rights, Shady. The Patriot Act.
Pretty much chipped away at every one of them.
Yes,
because
sir.
it gave them authority to bring all. The big thing that it did is that a lot of people forget is that it brought all of the intelligence agencies under the one umbrella.
Right. Right.
So before that, none of them knew which one of them was up to the most nefarious projects.
That's right.
Then they came all together and they started working together against the executive branch, against the elected officials, against the people through the media and corporate interest, through the Supreme Court. Look how they manipulated Robertson, the vote, and all of this stuff that's gone on.
That's right. That's right. My gosh.
They've got their tentacles and everything. And you're seeing something amazing, considering we keep getting these posted zero deltas between, I think it was the mathematics were like there couldn't possibly be like 7 to occur in a lifetime or something, and now we're to like 30.
I mean, mathematically impossible. Even 3 was astronomical in the stats. 3 or 4, 3 or 4. I mean, it just keeps. There was 17 in one
3
day.
was like winning the lottery. Yeah, 3 was like winning the lottery on the same day twice or something.
Right.
I mean, it's like now we're at 30.
That's right. So this is awesome, guys, man. This is the Q thread right here. Look, we got it. Brexit, QAnon posts. See, we're already on top of it, guys. Shady, we're on top of this stuff. But what I want to do is I want to actually grab this video too. I want to copy, and I want to go to the Twitter downloader and grab the video too in case we get another Q post. Let's hold up. We got another Q post. Let's reload this. Do you like the sound? All right, here we go. Shady, why don't you take 3798? Let me just actually make it bigger so we can see the whole thing, and we'll scroll down as we go. All right, so 3798 today at 128.20 at 1426. Shady.
Yes, and Anon says, "I'll have fun when things start happening in our favor." Q responds, "Play a game of where are they now? Think CEOs. Think FBI. Think DOJ. Think White House. Think State Department. Think clowns. Think foreign intel. ... Think judge install.
Sullivan.
Think Supreme Court install. Think DOJ install. Think FBI install. Think clown install.
Ooh.
Think Prime Minister UK install. Think the best is yet to come."
Oh my gosh. Yes, Katie Gus. They didn't hit QMAP yet because we have the fastest one right here. This Q Drop app was designed by Shady and I, just so you know. And we check every 17 seconds, folks. And this is the fastest. It's the best one in my opinion for Shady searching, right? So if you want to check that out, you can check it out. And here it is right here. But Shady and I are very proud of it. Right, Shady?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, so where are we at on the actual Q post here? So I've actually got to kind of get these done. I can get it done maybe during the show.
You want to work on that? I'll drop back here and read a couple things while you're working on that.
Go for it, brother.
All right, I'm going to stop. You don't have to show it, but I'm just going to read to you guys. Post 3724.
Let me get 3724 up for you guys. Hang on. 3724 for Shady, right? 25?
24 and 25.
And 20. Okay, so if we want to search for 24 and 25, we can put 3724, comma, 3725, and guess what, guys? We get those posted in a row. Do you want to go from 4 to...
I'm going to start on 3724, and I'm going to read these because they connect exactly to what Q just posted to us.
All right, so look, I'm going to reverse the drop order, and Shady can read them from that. There you go, Shades. Let me just go ahead and make it a little bit smaller so you can check them out, and that way I can kind of do my thing.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
3724. It must be done right. It must be done according to the rule of law. It must carry weight. It must be proven in the court of law. There can be no mistakes. Good things sometimes take time. Attempts to slow or block the inevitable justice will fail. Dems election interference 2016 to Hillary Clinton, Hussein, illegal FISA. Dems election interference 2018
there were 18
to Mueller.
My bad.
Dems election interference 2020 to impeachment. Projection. These people are sick. We, the people, are the cure. Q. And then to that, Q responds in 3725. fired forced FBI, fired forced DOJ, fired forced state, fired forced Senate, fired forced Congress, fired forced clowns, fired forced DOD, hire, install Supreme Court, hire, install federal judiciary, hire, install DOJ, hired, install CIA, locked and loaded. Q.
Wow.
That was December 18, just a little over a month and 10 days
General
ago.
of the intelligence community.
The pressure.
My bad.
There was
oh my
there
gosh,
were
I'm trying to
18
keep it muted. I'm sorry, guys. Shady, go, continue.
Go good. You can see the pressure building, though, through these posts and with what just happened. I mean, what happened yesterday was astounding. Pam Bondi was trending on Twitter yesterday, which was quite, alarming. Like, wow, okay, there's a lot of people tweeting about that if it's actually trending, and they're letting it trend because we see them suppress everything. But this is, this leads right back into what you and I have been talking about so much about how the transparency is being used to attack our institution.
Yeah.
That's what's going on more than anything. We say, oh, we have to have a secret so that the terrorists can't look at our paperwork and know that we're looking at them. That kind of doesn't make a lot of sense logically, really.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So let's be honest whenever we start to be loud, and let's make sure that we are talking to the point of all of this stuff. The FISA court is a problem. Notice how the FISA court came into being not long after we were taken off the gold standard. Okay, so that's relevant. Notice that there's been 11,000 FISA warrants requested and like 10 rejected.
Right.
That's relevant because now we know who these people are. If the mafia people that are in the mafia that are doing mafia-ish type stuff in the streets are the same people that are in the DOJ and FBI that are supposed to be investigating the mafia in the streets. I mean, we have Whitey Bulger, who was just killed not that long ago in prison, right?
Right.
Connected to the Bidens and connected to all of these, Carlos Slim, connected to all of the different financial schemes, connected to all of this stuff. Whitey Bulger, okay? You talk about Gambinos, you talk about the crime families, you talk about Trump and New York and who he was fighting and how you have to deal with the mob in New York to build stuff, okay? There is a lot of layers here, and we have the fox guarding the hen house, and it's been going on for too long. And Q is, that's what this is all about. That's what Q is all about, is making us understand that as we rebuild,
right,
and as we restructure this, it has to be done with transparency, and our example will be POTUS.
And boom.
Right? Because he's look what he's done. They keep saying he's hiding stuff. Look at all the stuff he gave to Mueller. He doesn't have to give it again. That fact that he did it was ridiculous, but he became the most transparent president in history for doing that. He didn't exert executive privilege over any witness or document or event.
Let me ask you guys, who here is having fun yet? Are you guys tired of winning?
If I see any of these people tired of winning, they've had it.
They've had it. They're dead to me. You guys, what an honor to be here with you during all of this, guys. This is absolutely phenomenal, man. I can't tell you how honored I am to be here with each and every one of you. Shady?
Yeah. And to see it in real time. I mean, to be watching the hearing, seeing your president tweet today about all of this stuff. We got a rally tonight. Did you hear there was 110,000 tickets requested for that?
Oh, come on. That's just fit. No, come on. There couldn't be, Shady.
We're paying them.
Right. And by the way, the last time there was, how many, Shady, were there? 58%.
Yes, non-Republican.
Non-Republican, guys, in, what was it, Michigan, I think. Let's check this out, too, guys. I wanted to show you this. It was very special. Our president retweeted it today, and I want to share this with you. It's actually amazing. Let's see.
Brian Felder says they're all paid whenever they go to the rallies. President Trump, he's paying them to go and sit there and pretend like that they're interested in what he's saying.
So I met all these people, and they were like all about President Trump. I don't think they were being paid, my friend.
You didn't ask for a pay stub?
I've been to 2. I didn't ask for a pay stub. I didn't see anybody. And in fact,
you didn't get a little stocking stuffer as you walked in?
No, I got nothing but
you wouldn't have your own free will.
Open arms is all we got, man. We got open arms.
Love.
Let's check this out. Here we go.
This is great. Thank you, man. Thank you. That's awesome. You want to stand? Just like you are. You're good. Get it.
Guys, that's our president. You know, he put his life on the line to go over there and talk to the people that put their life on the line, Shady.
Yes. And just, it's just incredible to watch.
Right. This is from September 24th. America knows while anyone can make war, only the most courageous can choose peace. President Donald J. Trump. And I think people are going to start. Yeah. Luna Mott says Obama would never do that. You know?
No.
By the way, I want to thank WWG1WGA for this GIF. Look at this GIF. Boom. I love it. I love it. And our POTUS was up late last night, too. Look at this. We got the night shift over there for him. Good evening, POTUS. He's up all the time, Shady. I don't know how he does it.
I don't either.
Let's watch this. There we go.
And look, he also knows deep in his heart that Donald Trump couldn't find Ukraine on a map if you had the letter U and a picture of an actual physical crane next to it. He knows that this is, you know, an administration defined by ignorance of the world. And so that's partly him playing to their base and playing to their audience, you know, the credulous boomer Rube demo that backs Donald Trump.
I got your boomer right here, pal.
That wants to think that Donald Trump's a smart one and y'all elitists are dumb.
You elitists with your geography. And
Look
your
at these
maps,
pretentious idiots, guys.
Even though my
your math and your reading.
Yeah, you're reading. You know, your geography, knowing other countries, sipping your latte.
All those lines on the map.
Only them elitists know where Ukraine is. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, you should.
But by the way,
oh my God!
But you know what? But it was Rick's fault. I blame Rick. But in all honesty, you know what
Rick.
NPR should do?
Why not? Sorry, hold on. Wait.
Can I tell you
give
what?
me a second. Hold on. Sorry. That was good. Sorry. Rick, that was a good
By the way, I bet
that.
the president has a higher IQ. If you add all these guys' IQs up, I bet the president's higher. I guarantee you. I mean, that was absolutely ridiculous.
This is CNN.
Oh, God. This is CNN.
You know, I mean, wow, number one. Number two, I don't see them mocking me there, bro.
No.
I see panic. I see fear. I see panic. I see distrust. I see...
Was that nervous laughter?
Complete nervous laughter, 110%. Like they have no idea what in the world they're getting ready to do. But I tell you one thing, gentlemen, you better, you know, whatever you've got in the bank account right now, you might want to protect it because you're not going to be working much longer.
Right. The Senate still stands in recess, subject to the call of the chair. So stand by. We do have our eyes on it. Welcome
Yes,
to.
we do.
Yep,
we will bring it to you.
Welcome to intheMatrixxx channel here on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, share, join the membership. Guys, we have a lot of issues that people hear. This is the Q Army Plus members. You've got the Q Army and the Q Army Plus. The Q Army, and we got a Q Post. But this is, let's go. Hey, everybody. Hey now. We're going to go look at Q because that's what we do. Hey now. All right, so Q Post 3799. You didn't think we highlighted Epstein for no reason, did you? Those who were once protected are no longer. Timing is everything. Hunters become prey. Q. Oh my God.
Yes.
And we just had that video I tweeted like 2 days ago of Cindy McCain, Follow the Wives, admitting that they knew about this guy. They knew about Epstein, Shady.
I know, and she made my Deep State Wives Club thread so long ago.
Deep State.
Wives Club.
Guys, please share, like, subscribe, guys. This is how you do it. Q Army Plus members, it's a step-by-step walkthrough getting into the Discord server. If you're a Plus, you get the Discord server. Come talk with us. Come hang out. Okay? Go to the Discord app and make an account. You've got to have an app, whether you're in a computer or a phone or anything. You got to get the app. iPhone doesn't see the join button for whatever reason. So we've got underneath this video right here, we've got the way to join. It's a link. It goes right to it and you can join it from the phone from there. Go to the user settings, that little gear next to your thing on the bottom right after you're in your Discord app. So go to the connections, then find YouTube icon, click it. And all of a sudden, boom, you should see the Q Army server. And you select that and you should be good to go, folks. Okay? And just let pseudonym, because I'm giving it to her, Shady. Sue has been amazing at this. This is Sue and Kiwi Patriot. They have worked so hard to get this together for you all, and I can't thank you enough, Shady. Sue and Kiwi.
Man, you guys have no idea how hard the mods work behind the scenes to try to support us and to support this movement. And much love to Kiwi and Sue, especially for engineering this process to get us more. What we wanted to be more together. We wanted to start to increase the circle a little bit and include other people, so that potential candidates that are going to run for office, or potential people that sheriffs or whatever whoever you are out there, can connect back with us, and we can really start having standing on our own in society, because there's not a lot of people out there that are bringing productive truth to the forefront right now. Like, everybody seems to have their own agenda,
and everybody wants to divide. It's weird. I mean, come on, let's just we can all coexist together. We love you all. We love all patriots that are helping this Q movement. Shady, I thought this was really interesting. Since June 19th, 2017, President Trump's followers on Twitter have increased by 39,200,000. 952 days plus 39.2 million followers. An increase of 41,176 new followers per day, every day, for 2 years, 7 months, 1 week, and 1 day. Considering these numbers, staggering. That's staggering, Shady.
I mean, it's incomprehensible. Like that is I'm pretty sure there's no other Twitter account that's grown like that.
No.
And we've actually been noting, what was it, since the 27th, he had 68 million, and now he's almost to 72, so 5 million just in the last month.
Right.
Or something crazy.
Right. Red Wave for the mods. Thank you for all the hard work and dedication. Yeah. By the way, Shady, didn't the mods really do a good job getting that XXX stuff out of here?
Yes, they did, and they didn't. See, if any of you guys saw what was going on yesterday, the attempt is to crash the channel.
Mm-hmm.
They've been able to do it to other channels. If they can get enough of those bots in here going back and forth, they can actually put us offline.
Yeah.
So that is part of the work of the moderators here, is to get that stuff out and to keep things in order.
Wendy, you've got the Q and Trump emojis. You just got to hit the emoji button and you'll see, boom, United States of America flag, 5-5, Q Army, all of them. You'll see them right there. Go get them. You've got them. All members will also get their name on the ticker. Also, if you're a patron on Patreon, you can go claim if you're $10 and over, you can go claim your link to the Discord. Okay?
Come to order.
And here we go. We're coming to order, guys. Wow, guys, thank you so much, everybody. Here we go. We go to Windows Capture 2.
Mr. Chief Justice, members of the Senate. Well, I had kind of a lengthy presentation prepared, but I think you've heard a lot from our side, and I think we've made our case. And so I just want to leave you with a couple of points. First of all, thank you, Mr. Leader, and thank you, Democratic Leader Schumer, and all of you for the privilege of speaking on the floor of the Senate and for your time and attention. We really appreciate it. We've made 3 basic points. 1, all you need in this case is the Constitution and your common sense. You just look at the articles of impeachment. The articles of impeachment fall far short of any constitutional standard, and they are dangerous. And if you look to the words from the past that I think are instructive, as I said last night, they're instructive because they were right then and they're right now. And I'll leave you with some of those words.
There must never be a narrowly voted impeachment or an impeachment supported by one of our major political parties and opposed by the other. Such an impeachment will produce the divisiveness and bitterness in our politics for years to come and will call into question the very legitimacy of our political institutions.
This is unfair to the American people. By these actions, you would undo the free election that expressed the will of the American people in 1996. In so doing, you will damage the faith the American people have in this institution and in the American democracy. You will set the dangerous precedent that the certainty of presidential terms, which has so benefited our wonderful America, will be replaced by the partisan use of impeachment. Future presidents will face election, then litigation, then impeachment. The power of the president will diminish in the face of the Congress, a phenomenon much feared by the founding fathers.
This is a constitutional amendment that we are debating, not an impeachment resolution. The Republicans are crossing out the impeachment standard of high crimes and misdemeanors, and they are inserting the words any crime or misdemeanor. We are permitting a constitutional coup d'etat, which will haunt this body and our country forever.
I warn my colleagues that you will reap the bitter harvest of the unfair partisan seeds you sowed today. The constitutional provision for impeachment is a way to protect our government and our citizens, not another weapon in the political arsenal.
I expect history will show that we've lowered the bar on impeachment so much. We have broken the seal on this extreme penalty so cavalierly that it will be used as a routine tool to fight political battles. My fear is that when a Republican wins the White House, Democrats will demand payback.
You were right. But I'm sorry to say you were also prophetic. And I think I couldn't say it better myself, so I won't. You know what the right answer is in your heart. You know what the right answer is for our country. You know what the right answer is for the American people. What they are asking you to do is to throw out a successful president on the eve of an election with no basis and in violation of the Constitution. It would dangerously change our country and weaken forever all of our democratic institutions. You all know that's not in the interest of the American people. Why not trust the American people with this decision? Why tear up their ballots? Why tear up every ballot across this country? You can't do that. You know you can't do that. So I ask you to defend our Constitution, to defend fundamental fairness, to defend basic due process rights, but most importantly, to respect and defend the sacred right of every American to vote and to choose their president. The election is only months away. The American people are entitled to choose their president. Overturning the last election and massively interfering with the upcoming one would cause serious and lasting damage to the people of the United States and to our great country. The Senate cannot allow this to happen. It is time for this to end, here and now. So we urge the Senate to reject these articles of impeachment for all of the reasons we have given you. You know them all. I don't need to repeat them. They've repeatedly said over and over again, a quote from Benjamin Franklin, "It's a republic if you can keep it." And every time I heard it, I said to myself, it's a republic if they let us keep it. And I have every confidence in your wisdom. You will do the only thing you can do, what you must do, what the Constitution compels you to do. Reject these articles of impeachment for our country and for the American people. It will show that you put the Constitution above partisanship. It will show that we can come together on both sides of the aisle and end the era of impeachment for good. You know it should end. You know it should end. It will allow you all to spend all of your energy and all of your enormous talent and all of your resources on doing what the American people sent you here to do, to work together, to work with the president, to solve their problems. So this should end now, as quickly as possible. Thank you again for your attention. I look forward to answering your questions. And with that, that ends our presentation. Thank you very much.
The Majority Leader is recognized.
Mr. Chief Justice, I have reached an agreement with the Democratic leader on how to proceed during the question period. Therefore, I ask unanimous consent that the question period for senators start when the Senate reconvenes on Wednesday. Further, that the questions alternate between the majority and minority sides for up to 8 hours during that session of the Senate. Finally, that on Thursday, the Senate resume time for senators' questions alternating between sides for up to 8 hours during that session of the Senate.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
So we will complete the question period over the next 2 days. I remind senators that their questions must be in writing, will be submitted to the Chief Justice. During the question period of the Clinton trial, senators were thoughtful and brief with their questions, and the managers and counsel were succinct in their answers. I hope we can follow both of these examples during this time.
During the impeachment trial of President Clinton, Chief Justice Rehnquist advised counsel, quote, counsel on both sides, that the chair will operate on a rebuttable presumption that each question can be fully and fairly answered in 5 minutes or less, end quote. The transcript indicates that the statement was met with, quote, laughter, end quote. Nonetheless, managers and counsel generally limited their responses accordingly. I think the late chief's time limit was a good one and would ask both sides to abide by it.
So, Mr. Chief Justice, I ask unanimous consent that the trial adjourn until 1 p.m. Wednesday, January 29th, and that this order also constitute the adjournment of the Senate.
Without objection, we're adjourned.
Wow, wow, and more wow, folks. Shady Groove, let me bring him in here. Hang on. Shady, let me bring you in, buddy.
Sir.
Wow.
That was pretty quick and to the point, I think, from the defense.
That's right. And you know what I think too, like, you know how like when somebody lies to you, Shady, They just keep, filling in all this information and, all that. They keep
go round and round again.
Too much information. I can't come over because I stubbed my toe. I tried to, go to the hospital to get my toe fixed, but my cat needed to be washed, and I needed to do that, and I just can't do that. You're lying. Too much information. Right. Facts are very boom, boom, very succinct. Very
direct.
Very direct, exactly right. So let me go to Windows Capture 2 here. All right, this is the Durham boat, folks. So Q, while we were watching the end of this trial, we had Q Post 3800 with the link to the Durham boat. Anons found the subtle hint dropped in the beginning. Think Durham start, think Q start. You have more than you know, Q. And obviously, we go over here. The Durham boat was a large wooden flat-bottomed double-ended freight boat which was used on many of the interior waterways of the North America beginning in the middle of the 18th century. They were displaced by larger, more efficient canal boats during the canal era, beginning with opening the Erie Canal in 1825. The Durham name became associated with this boat type due to their use by the Durham Iron Works of Durham, Pennsylvania, for hauling freight on the Delaware River, folks.
Freight and soldiers over on Christmas Day against the British during the Revolution.
That's right. That's right. Crossing the Delaware, folks. Wow. So, folks, Shady. Future proves past. So that's nice that they kind of kept it within our show limits. It's 3 p.m. on the East Coast. How are you guys feeling? You guys got the Q post, right? So let's just recap the Q post real quick. The first Q post we got was 37.95, Shady, confirming this right here. This is the Brexit, decode graphic, because Q on 123, right here. Next Friday, Brexit Act has been given royal assent. We are leaving the EU next Friday, which goes into that Q post right here on January 31st. Freedom Day, Freedom Q, linking to Friday.
That's it.
On January 31st, 2 years ago, 2-year delta.
2-year delta, Freedom Day will match up with the Brexit, and Q is confirming that decode. So this is connecting your map from 2.5 months into the Q operation. Now we've got the map connected to the beginning of the Durham start.
Yep.
Right up front with Q, and then here is this decode right here to say that what is it? Day after tomorrow? No, today's Tuesday. So Friday.
Brexit.
Yep.
And look at this. So this is Q post on 123.20. Congratulations, UK Patriots. Independence is a beautiful thing. Globalism dead, and that is also boom. I mean, this is just amazing. Looking Glass, folks. I mean, is this Looking Glass, Shady? I mean, wow.
It's amazing because since World War II, there's been unbelievably weird restrictions between America and the UK.
Right.
And it's all because they were setting up this globalist thing, and so they started putting other stuff in where the cars aren't compatible and things can't be shipped and no one can work out the trade deal and all this different stuff. And then come EU back in the 90s, and then trying to rise up a counter to America's excellence or America's productivity, which obviously isn't going to work. It didn't work, but it restricted us from being able to trade with the UK.
That's right.
To be able to have normal relations with the people of Britain.
That's right.
And so now, with them being able to walk out of Brexit, they do not have to contract with the EU anymore. They're free to make a deal with us.
That's right. And that's exactly what our POTUS is doing, guys.
So, and at the same time, we're seeing the royal family being
sheltered. They're seeking shelter.
Right. And there's lots of, the Queen didn't show up for her dinner day before yesterday. 40 some years. She's never missed this.
That's right.
Didn't show up. Nobody knows why. She wasn't wearing her crown. The president walked in front of her. We have all of this stuff that points us directly to that what we're looking at.
We know
is
why.
What's really happening, and what the news is focusing on is what they wish could happen.
That's right. We know why.
Big narrative coming here.
That's right. So we got this. We got 3796. Boomer 4K says important Q, and then it links to this video right here. One more time.
This is that the House prosecutors had for this, but you have not seen all 18 transcripts. Is that right?
That's exactly right, Maria. The House managers kept putting up charts talking about the 17 witnesses, but there were 18. The 18th was the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, Michael Atkinson. He was the second witness interviewed on October 4th. I was there. It's the one transcript out of 18 that hasn't been released. It's a 179-page transcript, and you can bet that if that transcript was helpful to Adam Schiff and the Democrats and harmful to President Trump, everyone would have seen it by now. But instead, it's just the opposite. It's the one transcript that talks about Adam Schiff and the whistleblower. Now, everyone knows by now that Adam Schiff was not truthful about his contacts with the whistleblower. What they don't know, and what's in that transcript, is that the whistleblower wasn't truthful about his contacts with Adam Schiff. This whole thing started, Maria, when a whistleblower filed a complaint with the Inspector General under penalty of perjury that wasn't true and correct, made representations in writing and then verbally that weren't true and correct. And when we found that out and tried to get into the details of that, Adam Schiff, who was in charge of this investigation, shut it down, and now he's trying to bury that transcript.
That's right. That's amazing. I keep seeing coronavirus, and I tweeted this out several days ago. Trump says the U.S. has a plan to contain coronavirus. Okay, that's our president. So basically, he was in Davos, Switzerland. And if you're a QAnon and you're reading QAnon, you'll understand that this was basically, I think we've already handled it well. We think we've already handled it well. Already. So basically, here it is. We're in very good shape, and we think China's in very good shape, he said to a CBS reporter. And he went on to say, we have a plan. Do we know about plans here? That we trust? Possibly. We think we've already handled it well. So Trump also told CNBC in an interview that the U.S. situation is totally under control. This is coming from your president. It's one person coming from China. We have it under control. It's going to be just fine. He's telling you to, stop the slide, basically, guys. Trust the plan. Remember Zika. Remember all the other things. Remember all of them. It's just a fear tactic, guys. Don't give in to the fear. Shady, do you want to speak on that at all?
I would like to just say to not overly act afraid, right? Don't spread fear. That is what they're trying to get us to do. If something starts to happen and it gets escalated, then we're going to deal with it tactfully as it happens. But they're really trying to get everyone distracted and talking about something else. I've seen. Listen, this is what I know, and let's just be honest, okay? Why are there still planes flying from Wuhan to San Francisco and New York? I don't know. Plane travel has not been restricted. But China is acting like there's all of these people over there that are getting sick and they're quarantining cities, but they're still allowing airplanes to come here. This doesn't make sense to me.
Right. So I'm begging you guys. Corona is the water with yellow dye. That's right. Go ahead.
Well, we also know Matrix from years and years of reading and being involved with the conspiracy world and how, everything comes around, the SARS, Ebola, you name it, whatever. But we've just seen so many times everything is about the show, right? Everything is about to aggregate fear, get as many people vaccinated as possible, get a new vaccine introduced, get more companies to get more research funding to figure out how that the virus that was made in a lab could have possibly gotten out. So there's so many multiple different levels to it that I would just suggest don't go to Wuhan, China.
Sorry, I had to laugh at that.
Continue your daily life.
Right. And don't give in to the fear. But, I understand people do get afraid of this stuff. And I want to, we got to handle that with kid gloves. But, guys, it's a slide topic. Because guess what's happening right now?
Impeachment.
What else is happening right now? Epstein.
Brexit.
Everything. Bar's coming, guys. But here, look at this coronavirus. Okay, guys. So, do you want to give in to the fear?
No.
Me either. Right on, guys. I love you all. Shady, let's just go over this. The next Q post here was the Zero Delta regarding to the Sekulo's argument is passionate. He's telling the Senate that if they remove Trump in the middle of an election after his campaign was spied on by the government and smeared for Russia collusion by White House manager, there will be ... This is important. Q, that's the one that we just, the video we just watched. It's a Zero Delta, folks. Having fun yet? Q. And then we've got this one here, Shady, 3798. I'll be having fun when things starts happening in our favor. Play a game of Where Are They Now? Think CEOs. Think FBI. Think DOJ. He's telling this Anon to trust the plan. Think WH. Think state. Think CIA. Think foreign intel. ... Think judge install. We've got 187 or more. At the end of the year, it was 187. It's like 193 or something now. Think judge install. 193. Think Supreme Court install. How many do we get? How many do we get, guys? 2? Think DOJ install. We're changing people and putting Patriots in the DOJ. Think FBI install. We're putting people in the FBI that are Patriots, along with the CIA. We got a new PM in the UK, Boris Johnson. They're Brexiting. Think the best is yet to come. Q. See, we're all concerning, and we call that something else in the chans, and I won't say it here, but we've got to trust the plan, folks. We've got to trust the plan. I mean, I'm telling you that because every time I see something... What? Every time I see something, it's interesting because it ends up being okay. Here we are still on YouTube after January 10th, Shady. Did I drop you, Shady?
I know. Drop 2. No.
I'm gonna finish
here,
up.
right?
Okay, I'm gonna finish up the 2 posts that we got so far today. 3799 was, you didn't think we highlighted Epstein for no reason, did you? First of all, Epstein didn't kill himself. Came from us guys, you guys, the Anons, and then we got into the normie consciousness. This is huge, folks. So you didn't think we highlighted Epstein for no reason. Those who were once protected no longer. Timing is everything. Hunters become prey. Q. Then we've got this one. Anons found the subtle hint. Dropped in the beginning. Think Durham start. Think Q start. You have more than you know. And Shady and I and the brilliant Anons have covered all of this. Shady.
I would like for you to pull up drop number 60 to share with them real quick.
You got it, my friend. And thank you for that. Go ahead. Continue. Let me search.
No, I just wanted to say that in this drop, number 60, I was going to read it for them whenever you get it up.
There you go, buddy.
You can count the people who have the full picture on 2 hands. Of those, less than 10 people, only 3 are non-military. Why is this relevant? Game theory. Outside of a potential operator who has been dialed in with orders specific to his or her mission, nobody else has this information. Operators never divulge. Alice in Wonderland. And I wanted to highlight that as a little bit of a lead into some of what you were talking about. Yeah. And the way everybody's freaking out about the coronavirus and freaking out about everything else that's going on, freaking out about impeachment. The picture, now whenever this first sentence, you can count the people who had the full picture on 2 hands. That is in reference to the people running the Q operation, okay? Now, within that reality, you think less than 10 people know exactly the whole scope of how the plan is going to go isn't the same as Anons having the full picture, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The difference is no one else in your government or this system of cabal-oriented factions and pyramid structures and whatever have the full picture because they've all been compartmentalized. Whether it's Brennan or Pelosi or you name it, whichever one of them it is, they're compartmentalized to what it is their clown ops are. The president, the Q team, are compartmentalized among just the 10 tight social network of nobody communicates to anybody outside of here and don't acknowledge it anywhere unless someone asks the POTUS.
Right.
Anons have all the information that the deep state is trying to hide from the president.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you pay attention to that, you can see that you actually do have all of the information. Simply for instance, like with Epstein, you don't need to know exactly which meetings Epstein had with which deep state player where. You just need to know that he is an intelligence agent who's been working for them for decades, and he's really good at getting people in situations where they are able to be blackmailed.
Mossad.
That was his job. Mossad, correct. So not that he is the puppet master of Mossad. He is in his compartmentalized chamber. He works with these people that they're controlling and making sure, you know? So the whole picture, less than 10 people. I'm pretty sure that this reality that we're looking at, game theory, now that we're seeing these line up with not only, remember we had the General Flynn thing that just went the done in 30 from the 27th to the 28th. And now we've had the post just now about Brexit from 2 years ago. So we're now seeing 2-year deltas on the map, which leads me to believe that we're stepping back to the beginning of the Q operation and we're following the map around.
That's right. That's right. And I'd like to, I got what I wanted to get to. I was looking for it frantically. Google's not allowing me to find it. But let's check this out right here. This is exposed. Cindy McCain admits we all knew about Epstein. This should anger every American. This is from Q. Deconstruction of foreign-controlled intel, U.S. media plus alt. Critical. And that's Alex Jones, guys. Alt media. That's the, untouchable regarding state-backed. Epstein thought so. Puppets and puppet masters, guys. And let's listen in.
Very quickly, to bring it home, we're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein thing. He's in hell, I hope. I hope he's in hell right now. He deserves to be. A girl from my daughter's high school was one of his victims. That's how close to home it came to us, for us, on this. So I'm hoping that we get to discuss not only what it is, but where it is and why it is, and leave you with an action item when you leave here tonight.
Excellent. Excellent. As I understand. So I'm going to shoot straight. The perception between a lot of young people is that there is an untouchable ring of governmental and economic elites in this country that not only benefit, like she mentioned, but actively participate in sex trafficking. Jeffrey Epstein was an example. Robert Kraft was arrested not far from here on trafficking charges, and so we, in terms of this as a grassroots movement to push to combat against this issue, are these power players a priority for us right now? Can we even touch them? Or is this a pipe dream that we need to address in the future somehow?
It's like everything. It hides in plain sight. Epstein was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him. We all knew what he was doing. But we had no one that was, legal aspect that would go after him. They were afraid of him. For whatever reason, they were afraid of him. All of a sudden, someone said, BS. We're not afraid of you anymore on what you're doing. It's not only wrong, it's illegal, it's, all those things. It's like a house of cards now. It's going to start tumbling, believe me. And these guys, if they don't leave the country, number one, they're going to get caught, and they not only will they get caught, but they're going to be made examples of. And that's exactly what we should be doing with these guys, especially. In my opinion, if I know there's questions, but Epstein's a chicken shit for doing what he did. He should have faced the music. That one, he should have. Yeah. Sorry.
Wow, guys.
I'm really buying that.
Yeah. Real quick, JL Sharkey, in the link below, it says join right there. Just the first link. Check it out. It's right there, unless the mods can drop it. Chicken shit in hell. But she knew, Shady.
Yeah, she knew.
And her husband is no longer around.
Yeah, and we know that the guys aren't the only ones involved in this.
Right.
It's funny how she said, get those guys.
Yeah.
Leave the women alone.
Right.
Barbara Bush and Laura Bush and Michael Obama. Michelle.
Gotcha. Yeah, you accidentally. I think there's a Freudian slip. So I think that's a pretty amazing show. Here we are, all together, like-minded patriots here. We got 1,036 people watching. We've got, we're actually so thankful for each and every one of you. We can't do this without you. We've got the PayPal link. Shady, I think we should also talk about Red Pill Living real quick. It's an amazing, here's the commercial right here. It's an amazing product, C60. Get healthy with Red Pill Living.
There was a time when I had my head in the sand. Then I found out that power players pass lies for truth.
Stay tuned for music.
Truth for lies, especially in areas of life and health. I used to stay quiet, and now I speak up. I red pill my family. I red pill my friends. And I support redpillliving.com. Red Pill Living has real health products that support longevity, vitality, and detoxification against the deep state attacks on your health. It's redpillliving.com. Wake up, stand up, speak up.
redpillliving.com/intheMatrixxx, folks. And I think I noticed the mods are dropping a bunch of things. I think they love this music right here, Shady. This music.
I think you're right.
They love this. So, Patriots, there's a lot going on in here. A lot's going on happening in here. We've got many ways to help support us. We've got the Teespring underneath, and the link is below. We've got the flag pins, the Q flag pins. Make sure you get your Q flag pin, guys. We got the PayPal and the Patreon. Now, if you're a Patreon now, you can get the Discord membership, Shady, by claiming your $10 or more award. Yes.
Come on over, guys. Where does the Discord?
Come on over, and I'm going to go show you that Discord right now. Let me see if I can get it over here, Shady. Let me see what I do. How do I get it over here? Do I have to... I think I had to show you my screen. Let me just see what we got here. You guys like this music? We lost 30 people. We lost 50 people. I guess people don't like the music as much as our true fans here. But guys, this has been a great show. Shady, I think we could take it home. Join the Q Army Plus. You will get into the Discord. Get the $10. Claim your reward at Patreon. $10 or more. And you get it. You get the Patreon. You can go into our thing. Thank you for hosting the trial and all you do, says Wendy Ty. Thank you so much, new member. Also, new members and members of Plus. You see that thing scrolling around? You are going to be able to see your name on there as well. Shady, let's do our final thoughts for you, my brother. I think, oh my gosh, wait a second. Yes, Trinity's got the phone.
Thanks so much for everybody coming around. We're taking it down again. Here comes your president. He's not stopping. He is not going to stop. So please, none of you stop. Somebody asks you a question, try to answer them. Don't be pushy, but try to answer them. Don't think that you can tell them something to think. Think that you can give them a question that they can then maybe answer on their own. That's our key to this, man. What a great time it is to be alive. I really so much appreciate all of you. I can't say it enough. We wouldn't be here without you, and you guys have given us so much great feedback that we feel like this is a worthwhile endeavor, and we love every minute of it.
That's right. The narrative has you. Don't let the narrative has you. You are the news now. We are the news now. Remember, you are watching a movie, and a very well scripted movie, folks. And it's
clean your hands.
It's a BS
popcorn.
It's a BS impeachment, folks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys very much. IntheMatrixxx, the3x's.com. You can find everything.
To their pillaging and their plundering and their hoaxes. The radical Democrats' policies are crazy, their politicians are corrupt, and they know they can't win an election day, so they're pursuing an illegal, invalid, and unconstitutional bullshit impeachment.
Shady. All right, Shady, we got to bring this back. Are you still here? We got a new cue. I'm going to bring the window up. Hang on one second. Window number 2. All right, let me turn this up. Targets acquired. This is a new cue. This is from Ella Nichelle. Do you believe in coincidences? Where is the rally held tonight? Enjoy the show. Let's check it out. Here we go. So, update. Who is helping POTUS? Last line of the queue. POTUS attached was right in front of us the whole time. In one of the queue first drops, queue included the Delaware crossing. Those boats sure did help POTUS. Twitter, Ella Nichelle. Durham appointed the same day as queue's first post. So who is helping POTUS? And that's Durham. Okay, we got that. Wow, great post, Ella Nichelle. Wow, Q sent me. Q sent me. And that's it, guys. We're going to head out of here. Oh, my gosh. It is wild, isn't it? Congratulations, Ella Nichelle, for that. Guys, we are out of here again. See ya. We're going to go down. We're going to go down the hole. And thank you guys very much for coming with